There is a woman living in public housing in Los Angeles right now. She did not want to give her name because she is terrified of being deported. She came from Mexico almost 30 years ago. She cleans houses for a living. Her husband is a butcher. They have been trying to fix their immigration status for years. And they have children. Children who were born here. American citizens. Last week, she found out the government wants to evict her entire family, including her American-born kids, from the only home they have ever known. She told reporters one thing. She said, "Our family is our kids." And this is where they grew up. This February, the Trump administration published a rule that gives families like hers one choice: leave together or split up your family. 37,000 American children are about to find out which one their parents choose. The 60-day clock. Let me start with the official government headline. Not my words. The actual headline published by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development on February 19, 2026. Are you ready? Illegals, ineligibles and fraudsters, pack your bags. That is a direct quote, posted on the official HUD government website, with a waving hand emoji, a purse emoji, and a plane emoji, the United States government. Official communication, waving goodbye with emojis. Now here is what that headline did not tell you. Of the 80,000 people HUD just told to pack their bags, 37,000 of them are children, born in America, carrying U.S. passports, who have never broken a single law in their lives. Some of them have never even left the country they were born in, and the government just told them to pack their bags. With a waving hand emoji. This is not a rumor. This is not a political opinion. On February 19, 2026, HUD published a proposed rule change in the Federal Register. The rule targets what the government calls mixed-status families. That is a family where at least one person is undocumented, and everyone else, including the children, are U.S. citizens or legal residents. Under the current system, these families can live in federally subsidized housing. The undocumented family member gets no housing subsidy. The family actually pays higher rent to cover that person's share. They are not getting a free ride. They are paying extra. But under the new rule, it does not matter. If even one person in your home is undocumented, your entire family loses the housing. Effective immediately after a 90-day compliance window, with a maximum 30-day extension if you beg hard enough. 90 days. That is how long a family has to figure out what to do with their entire life. Find a new apartment in a housing market where, let me remind you, only 1 in 4 Americans who qualify for housing assistance can actually get it. The waiting lists for federal housing can be 5, 10, sometimes 15 years long. These families did not jump a queue. They waited. They qualified. They followed every rule. And now they have 90 days to leave. And here is the detail that genuinely made my jaw drop when I read it. The new rule requires every single person in a federally subsidized household, adults, children, seniors, U.S. citizens, everyone, to prove their immigration status through a government database called SAVE. Here is the problem. The SAVE database cannot process birth certificates. It cannot process U.S. passports. 2 of the most basic documents proving American citizenship, the database the government is using to verify citizenship cannot read them. So American-born children with American passports get flagged for secondary verification. Which means delays, which means interruptions to housing assistance, which for some families means eviction notices before the paperwork even gets sorted out. HUD acknowledged this problem in the rule itself. Their solution? Tight deadlines with limited extensions. Essentially, your problem, not ours. Now let me introduce you to someone. His name is Carlos. He is 9 years old. He was born in Chicago. He has a U.S. passport. He goes to 3rd grade at a public school in his neighborhood. He loves basketball. His parents came from Guatemala 15 years ago. They have lived in the same federally subsidized apartment for 11 years. They have never missed a rent payment. His mother works nights at a hotel laundry service. His father does construction. Carlos has one younger sister, Sophia, who is 6, also born in Chicago, also a U.S. citizen. Last Tuesday, their parents sat them down and explained that they might have to move. Carlos asked one question: where are we going? His parents did not have an answer because 90 days is not enough time to find one in the city of Chicago right now. Here is the math on what this actually means nationally. The Center on Budget and Policy Priorities analyzed the numbers. 80,000 people face eviction under this rule. 37,000 of them are U.S. citizen children. The National Housing Law Project puts the number even higher, over 100,000 total people. And these are not wealthy families who have other options. These are the families at the absolute bottom of the housing ladder. Families who, if they lose federal housing, have nowhere to go. No savings for a deposit. No credit history strong enough for a private landlord. No family members with spare rooms. The homeless shelter system in every major American city is already overwhelmed. Where do 37,000 American children go when there is no room? HUD Secretary Scott Turner has an answer to that. He wrote an opinion column in the Washington Post calling for ending the era of illegal aliens and other ineligible non-citizens exploiting public housing resources. He said it frees up housing for fully eligible Americans on waiting lists. And you know what? There is a real argument there. Those waiting lists are real. The shortage of affordable housing is real. Plenty of legal residents and citizens are waiting years for the same housing these families have. That frustration is legitimate. But here's the question nobody in Washington is asking. When you evict a family to free up a unit, and that family includes 3 American-born children who end up homeless, did you solve the housing crisis? Or did you just move it? Because those children are still in America. They are still citizens. They are still going to need housing, schooling, healthcare, and social services. Except now they need all of those things in emergency mode, which costs the system far more than subsidized housing ever did. In Part 2, we follow what actually happens to families like Carlos's when that 90-day clock runs out. Separation or the street? I want to introduce you to a second family, also in Los Angeles, also in public housing. She is Mexican, her husband is Guatemalan. They have 4 children. Every single one of them was born in the United States. All 4 carry American passports. 2 of those children have serious health conditions that require regular medical care. Those health issues are the reason she cannot work full-time. Her husband is a day laborer. And since ICE raids intensified across Los Angeles in January 2026, day labor work has become increasingly unpredictable. Some mornings he goes to the corner and nobody hires. Not because he is not a good worker. Because the employers are scared too. She told reporters, "The government does not want people living on the streets. But we will not have any other option." She was not gaming the system. Her previous apartment's bathroom ceiling collapsed. She was escaping a dangerous one. Now here is a detail buried deep inside the HUD rule that almost nobody is talking about. It is not just about eviction. The new rule also requires local housing authorities to actively report any tenant who cannot verify eligible immigration status directly to U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. Think about what that means. The same public housing agency that has been your family's landlord for years, the people you pay rent to every single month, would be legally required to hand your name and address to immigration enforcement. Lachelle Dozier, CEO of the Council of Large Public Housing Authorities, said they are committed to housing America's most vulnerable families. What she did not say is how those same agencies are supposed to reconcile being a trusted housing provider with being a required informant for immigration enforcement. Because you cannot be both. And families know that, which is why so many of them refuse to give their names to reporters. They are not just afraid of losing their housing. They are afraid that applying for help will get them deported. Let us talk about the impossible choice this rule creates. Adriana Cadena, executive director of the Protecting Immigrant Families Coalition, described it in one sentence: HUD's proposal would force families to choose between separation or remaining together on the street. Separation or the street. Those are the two options this rule gives a family with American-born children. Option 1. The undocumented parent leaves. The American-born children stay with whichever parent has legal status, or they enter the foster care system. The family is split apart. Option 2. The whole family leaves together. The American-born children become homeless alongside their parents. In the richest country in the history of the world, the government is presenting families holding American passports those exact two choices, and calling it policy. Here is something that rarely gets mentioned in the political debate around this rule. This is not the first time Trump's administration tried to do exactly this. In 2019, during Trump's first term, HUD proposed an almost identical rule targeting mixed-status families. Housing advocates and immigrant rights groups fought it aggressively. The rule never reached final implementation. Then COVID hit, and the administration's focus shifted. Then Biden came in and rescinded the proposal entirely. So this is a recycled idea. The difference this time is that the political environment is more aggressive, the administration is moving faster on every front simultaneously, and the legal challenges will have to be won in a much shorter window. The 60-day public comment period that opened February 21, 2026, is when advocacy groups will try to flood HUD with opposition and build the legal case for a court challenge. But 60 days goes very fast when 37,000 children's homes are on the line. Now let us look at the numbers argument seriously. The argument is simple. Only 1 in 4 Americans who qualify for federal housing assistance actually receives it. The waiting lists are real. In some cities, they stretch 5, 10, 15 years. There are fully eligible American citizens sleeping in cars and shelters right now who have been waiting years for the same housing. That is a genuine injustice. Nobody who opposes this rule should pretend otherwise. But here is what the numbers actually show. The Urban Institute ran the analysis on what happens when you evict these 80,000 people. Homelessness shelter costs. Emergency room visits for children with no stable address. School disruption costs. Foster care costs when families separate. Increased demand on food banks, community health centers, and emergency social services. Their conclusion? The downstream cost of evicting these families is significantly higher than the cost of housing them. You are not saving money. You are moving the cost from one government budget line to 3 others, and adding enormous human suffering in between. And then there are the schools. When a child's family loses stable housing, that child's academic performance collapses. Research consistently shows housing instability is one of the single strongest predictors of a child falling behind in school, developing behavioral issues, and dropping out before graduation. We are talking about 37,000 American children currently in classrooms, doing homework, learning to read. If this rule is fully implemented, a significant number of those children will spend next school year not knowing where they are sleeping. Their teachers will notice. Their test scores will show it. And 20 years from now, the economic cost of those disrupted educations will dwarf any savings this rule was supposed to generate. In Part 3, we look at who is fighting back and whether they can actually win before the clock runs out. Can they win? On February 21st, 2026, the day this video was made, the 60-day public comment period officially opened on HUD's proposed rule. This is the legal window during which any American can submit a comment to HUD opposing or supporting the rule. And advocacy groups are treating it like a countdown clock. Because that is exactly what it is. The National Housing Law Project, the Alliance for Housing Justice, the Protecting Immigrant Families Coalition, the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights, these organizations immediately activated their networks the moment the rule was published. Their strategy has 3 parts. First, flood HUD with public comments during the 60-day window. When the same rule was proposed in 2019 during Trump's first term, over 28,000 public comments were submitted before the comment period closed. Those comments, combined with the legal pressure that followed, played a significant role in the rule never reaching final implementation. They are aiming for more this time. Second strategy: legal challenge. Seamus Roller of the National Housing Law Project was direct about this. He said his organization and others are ready to fight again, and that the proposal runs contrary to federal law. The specific legal argument centers on Section 214 of the Housing and Community Development Act, which governs eligibility for federal housing assistance. Advocates argue HUD's new interpretation stretches Section 214 far beyond what Congress actually authorized. If a federal court agrees, an injunction could block the rule from taking effect even before the 90-day compliance window expires. That legal battle, if it happens, will move fast. And it will be expensive for everyone involved. Third strategy: political pressure. Several Democratic governors and big city mayors have already signaled they will resist the rule at the local level. The mayor of Chicago issued a statement calling the rule callous and counterproductive. Los Angeles and New York City housing officials have both questioned how local agencies are supposed to implement a rule that turns them into immigration enforcement arms. Marie-Claire Tran Leung of the National Housing Law Project pointed out a detail that gives local agencies legal cover for resistance. These families signed legal leases with public agencies under existing rules. Evicting them on 90 days' notice for complying with rules that were legal when they signed, that creates a genuine contract law problem that courts will have to sort out. Now here is the uncomfortable truth that supporters of this rule raise. And it deserves a real answer. They say, why should taxpayer-funded housing go to anyone who broke immigration law? Why should American citizens who have been on waiting lists for years continue waiting while mixed-status families occupy units? It is a fair question. And the answer is not because immigration is complicated or because they are good people. The answer is this: the 37,000 children in those units did not break any law. They were born here. They are American. And the U.S. Constitution, specifically the 14th Amendment, does not have an asterisk that says citizenship is conditional on your parents' paperwork. If this country believes in birthright citizenship, it cannot simultaneously evict the people that citizenship was granted to. You cannot have it both ways. There is also a purely practical argument against this rule that even its supporters should consider carefully. Right now, mixed-status families pay higher rent than fully subsidized families because they cover the cost of their ineligible family member themselves. Marie-Claire Tran Leung made this point clearly. Undocumented tenants get zero subsidy, so mixed-status families pay significantly higher rent, effectively subsidizing the federal housing system for everyone else. Remove those families and you do not just empty the units. You remove that additional rent revenue. With no new federal funding proposed to cover that shortfall, the Alliance for Housing Justice calculated that this rule would actually result in fewer total subsidized units and fewer housing vouchers available. The rule designed to free up housing for Americans on waiting lists may actually shrink the total amount of subsidized housing available. That is not speculation. That is HUD's own financial math working against their stated goal. So where does this leave Carlos? 9 years old. U.S. citizen. 3rd grade. Loves basketball. He did not ask to be born into a mixed-status family. He did not choose his parents' immigration status any more than any child chooses any circumstance of their birth. He is sitting in a classroom somewhere in Chicago right now, learning multiplication tables, completely unaware that 60 days of comments and legal briefs and political statements will determine whether he has a home next year. And here is what I want to leave you with. This is not ultimately a video about immigration. It is a video about what a country is willing to do to its own citizens when those citizens are inconvenient. Carlos is American. His passport says so. His birth certificate says so. The 14th Amendment says so. The only question is whether the government that issued that passport is willing to stand behind it, or whether American citizenship, for some Americans, is conditional on factors they never got to choose. The comment period closes in 60 days. If you want to submit a public comment to HUD opposing this rule, the link is in the description below. It takes 5 minutes. It is completely legal. And in 2019, those comments helped stop this exact rule from passing. They might again. If this video gave you something to think about, whether you agree with me or not, drop your honest opinion in the comments below. I want to hear from both sides. And if you know a family that would be affected by this rule, share this video with them. They deserve to know someone is still paying attention. Subscribe for next week. We are going deep into the American housing affordability crisis and why the people most hurt by it are the ones being blamed for causing it.